Okay, class, we're back. What I have here is the beginning of a sketch to determine if we're going to need some makeup air or not. And what I'm using for a sample, and those of you who were in my class last year, you tier two guys that were in last year might remember this one. This, let me point this out to you, is a house, my house, and this room right here, right there, is a sunroom. And originally, I guess it was a porch that was closed in, and I winterized it. And I have a stove out there now that's located right about. Not that it matters for this problem, but it's located right here. But it's in the sunroom, and it's a ventless, an unvented heater. It looks like an old-fashioned wood stove, except it's heated with gas. It has the fake logs inside. Very expensive, and it throws a lot of heat. It easily heats this room. It throws so much heat that with these doors open, it can actually heat the first floor of the house. Very strong heater. Now, eventually, if we have enough time, what I'd like to do is get into the rest of the house to see if we're going to need a fan in the can. And we'll start with this one. Now, when I decided to go with the, and I think I mentioned this on a video, I was complaining about all the work I had to go through to get this approved, this heater approved. I had to get electric baseboard, the fire marshal, electrical inspection, a lot of money, a lot of time. And then finally the gas inspector came out to inspect it with the fire inspector. But how did we get to that point? Well, there's a formula that I learned. Now, there is another formula that's not quite as simple as this one, but this one is the best. You look at the room and you wonder, I wonder if there's enough air in here to make this work. Is this going to be legal? And you have to do a little bit of math. So what you do, and now this is that sheet that I think I guess you could see this. A little shiny, but you probably had it sent to you, my tech support. Maureen should have sent this out to you, so take this out. Now I have a little bit of work down here that was not on your sheet, but we'll talk about it. Okay, so let's take some dimensions. So the area that's in question, whether it's the whole house or the basement, if it's a boiler, or in this case, just this room, because it's separate from the rest of the house, I'm going to find out how many cubic feet of air I have and how much I need. So before we go anywhere, take a look right here. This heater that I'm going to be looking for is a 30,000 BTU heater. That's the heater that I have. That's the output of the heater. Okay? Actually, that would be the input. This here is the maximum that you can have with an unvented heater. Now, these heaters are very restricted by the state, and there's a short list. There's a list of heaters that are approved. Certainly not all the unvented heaters, but they do have a list. I'm going to turn you guys this way a bit. Okay. All right, so that's what we're going to be working with. So the formula, and I want you to make note of this. It is, no, it's not on your page. It's on my notes here. The formula is length times width times height times 20. Now, where did the 20 come from? I don't know. It's just part of the formula, like pi r squared. It's just a formula. It's the formula you need to make this legal. All right, equals cubic feet available that's what this room can support by itself without the rest of the house, with everything closed off, which is how you size it up. So the length will be 24 times the width. Let's see, that's going to be what, 18? No, excuse me, 8. It's 8 here. It's 8 all the way. The whole thing is just 8 feet wide. Okay, so the 8 that you see here is also right here. Okay, and the height, I'm sorry, it's 28, it's 24. You get that right? It's 24 this way, and 18, but we're going to have to deduct this here. Unfortunately, this is a very weird shaped room. The height is 8 feet. Okay, the width is 8 feet. All right, I just got to figure this out here. We got 24 and 18 minus. All right, so it's actually 34. Okay, so the length is 34. All right, anybody wondering where the 34 just popped up from? Add 24, and then the 18, you got to take off the 8 feet for this here, right? So you actually have two rooms, one 24 by 8 and one 10 by 8 right here, okay? 34 by 8 by 8 times 20. Okay? Now, if one of you wants to check that out, I'll give you a second to check that out. Let me get something. Let's see what we're going to have here. So we got 34 times 8. Times 8 again. Times, it's like 20. Okay, I'm coming up with 43,520 cubic feet available right here. So this is going to equal, I'll put it underneath, 43,520. What do we have? This is what we available, and what we have, what we need, excuse me, what we need is 30,000. Okay, like that. So what's that mean? It means it's good. Now, technically, legally, I could have gone as much as 40,000 right here. I have enough air in this room right here to support a 40, just about, right? A little close. Personally, if you ever put one of these heaters in, I would recommend that you tell the owner, don't keep the doors cracked open. Don't leave it closed. Okay, even though you're legal, and if the inspector's smart, he'll be checking that on himself. Okay, so make sure that you have enough BTUs, because you might have an inspector who actually double checks it. Now, what I did is when the inspector came to inspect the job, I actually had this all worked out for him on another, not this sheet, but on another sheet, had all the math done. And he glanced at it, and I think he would know if it was, he didn't check my math, but I know that he knew what he was looking at. He looked at it pretty quick, and okay, he could see that it was like this, right? I had that much air, and I only needed that much air. Okay, so that's how you determine it. So that room now is fine. In fact, I might even take that heater out of there. It's a little too much. You turn it on, and within a couple of minutes, it just all but blows you out of the room. So what we do now is, even though it's only a 30, we keep it on the lowest setting, and it's still enough to heat the first floor, except on very cold nights. But this room here is a little too warm. I didn't know that when I bought it. Okay, that's neither here nor there. So let's do this. Let's see how we're doing for time. Yeah, we got plenty of time. All right, so let me review that again. If you're looking for one appliance and you need 30, you got 30,000 BTUs, right? You do the math, see how much you got available, and you need 30. Now, if this number here was, we'll say, 23 instead of 33, a smaller room. We'll say the room is only that big, like that right here. No good, right? The heat is not going to work in there. It'll work, but you're not going to pass inspection. It's also could be dangerous if somebody were foolish enough to close the doors off. So you'd have to do is to get some makeup air in there, all right, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So now let's go over to the main house right here. Now what I'm going to do is draw the gas in. The gas now comes in here, and the boiler is right about and the water heater is right here. Right, the gas comes in, goes by here, goes over and down, then it comes across and out into the sunroom, like that. So right now, this is out of the picture because that's upstairs and it's in the sunroom, and we already took care of it. So how about these two? How about those two? All right, now let's take a look at that sheet you have. On that sheet, that is spelled out for you. At the top of the page, you'll see where it says boiler, 30,000. I'll put it right here. $130. Water heater. And the let's add the stove in there. We'll put that in there for gas pipe sizing. Then I'll go on to the makeup air. Okay, so what do we got? Looks like 220. Now I know we haven't done gas pipe sizing. Some of you, the guys that were with me last year, we did gas pipe sizing. And you go into the chart, you look at the chart, the size of the gas pipe. One inch. Right? Now, if you go into the chart, this isn't the class for it, but if you went into the chart and you looked, you go down a 1 inch pipe, you read across to the furthest distant fixture, appliance, in gas we call them appliances, is this right here. And I believe it was 70 some feet. When it goes over the number, it goes 50, 60, 70. If it goes over, even by 1 foot, you jump up to the next. A lot of safety built in. So this would have been 80 feet. I remember sizing it up, checking it out. So on the chart, I went into the chart to make sure I had enough gas, and I did. I had actually just enough gas, right? It needs, I've got 220,000 BTUs available from 1 inch pipe, 80 feet, right? So this here was just enough, okay? Do some jobs go over? Of course they do. Now, anybody here who's worked in the city of Fall River, maybe you've noticed that you might have a 3/4 gas pipe and somebody took the cap off and they added a T, and maybe somebody else added another T. Pretty soon it starts looking like a ladder. I don't think that was sized. It usually works. I never did it myself, but this is the proper way to do it. You add up all your BTU for all your appliances, and then see if your gas pipe can handle it off the chart. And also, I'd suggest that you make a tab in your code book. It's I don't have it right here, but you tab the page where you size the gas pipe, so you don't have to keep sorting through the pages, because there are several pages that look almost identical. So you definitely want to put a little tab, a little piece of Scotch tape, and G for gas or something, so you can just take the book and flip it open to that page. It comes in very, very handy. Okay, so that's what I had here with the 1 inch. Now, my tech department would like a gas stove, which would be, if I put it in, somewhere about right, I'll put it on this side of the pipe, upstairs. Now, I think you can all realize that unless it uses any BTUs, this is going to be too small. So what I'm going to have to do is to find out how many BTUs a stove is. I don't know off the top of my head, but I think she might be out of luck. I don't know that I got enough BTUs, even without this. In other words, I could cut this line off right here, just dead end it right there to the stove. But that's something to look into. In any case, let's get rid of this. Don't want to confuse anyone. Let's get rid of all of this because it's not part of this problem. Okay? Now, what I want to know is, with the size of the basement like this, 39 by 26, right? Do I have enough makeup air in that basement for these two appliances, which have been here since I moved in? Well, I don't know. An interesting thing is, when I took out a building permit, I finished half of the basement. In other words, right down the center beam, right here, everything on the bottom, as you look at it, is finished, which itself creates a problem because it's not a wide open basement anymore. So let's see what we got. We got 190,000 BTUs we got to account for. All right, length times width times height. So this is what we need. And let's see what we have. So let's go back up on the top. Width times height. This is going to be 39 right here. 26 by 8 feet high. Okay, 39, 26, 8. Okay, and if you get a calculator, you can do it faster than me. I put mine down. I must have walked away. All right, in any case, let's see what we got. 39 times 26. Times 8. Okay, that's 8912 times 20. Okay, I got 178. So what do I have? Right, not a happy face. It's too small. Now this house has been like that probably since it was built in 1990, whatever, 93, I think it was. Okay, it's too small. Now is that going to create a hazard? I don't think so. Right, it was pretty drafty before I have replaced the doors. It's very tight. Also, like I said, I finished this side of the cellar, which is easy to close off. I mean, I can close off the boiler room. I can close off this quarter right here easily. Now, there is some air that can go over the top of the wall. There is a little bit of space here, but you shouldn't count that. But even with this wide open, the way it used to be, this is too small. Now, this happened. This is a true story. It sounds like I'm making it up, but I'm not. The electrician came over I did get a permit for this work, by the way. I did the construction work. It was all cosmetic. There's no structural walls, nothing. Insulated the outside walls with foam, then sheetrock or plywood, depending on where I was in the basement, and some interior partitions, but nothing that's holding up anything. But I did call in a professional electrician, and he did a lot of wiring, a lot of recessed lights across here, and also there's a corridor now that runs front to back. And I had the electrician come over, electrical inspector come over a few times. I know the guy. He's inspected other work here, solar panels, a few things. Anyway, he came over and he checked it out. It was a very good electrician that had done the work that I'm sure he's familiar with. The guys were very fast and neat, same way you want to be when you get out in the trade on your own. Nice job. So he looked, he did his thing. But before he left, he peeked in here because I had done these walls I did actually 2 years ago. 3 years ago. I did this first. I made a little storeroom in there, and he was looking in the doorway. He didn't have a door on at the time, and he spotted this like this, and he said, "You need." I'm trying to think of his exact words. I think he said, "You need a fan in the can," or I think he just said it straight out. You need a fan in the can. I was really impressed that he picked up on that. That's not his area. He's an electrical inspector, but he was right. Here it is here. He was absolutely right. And just by chance, the fan in the can was on one of the shelves I had built right near where we were standing. I showed him. I said, "There it is." I said, "I just haven't had a chance to have the electricians put it in." I said, "That's like the last thing on the list for them to do." Because I was trying to get them to put up their lights so I could finish what I was doing. And eventually I did put the fan in the can in. So now I have a fan in the can. I don't care if this door here now is closed, because the fan in the can can handle this. Now you're going to say, well, how big a job can a fan in the can handle? My experience is, thinking of my daughter's house, big monster boiler, like a 230, 240,000 BTU boiler, older boiler. Not really old, but older, probably in 1960s, 70s. And it was in a tiny room, just a little 8x8 room, very small boiler room. It was so small that the room is hot, like a commercial boiler room. If you've ever been in one, they're hot year round. It's like that. She has her hot water come off the boiler in a superstore. And it's so hot that they keep a little high up window kicked open in the winter, and it's still hot in there. But even with that window closed, the fan in the can was enough to provide air for that boiler. Now here's how it works. For those of you not familiar with fan in the can, fan in the can comes on, before the boiler comes on, the fan in the can comes on first. So you get air pumping in, boiler lights, boiler goes off when its temperature is satisfied. Fan in the can keeps running after the boiler goes off. So there's no point is this boiler running without air coming in. Right? That's how it's wired properly. Now mine is the same way, but it's not wired for the water heater. And I don't think it's illegal, because the water heater, you realize it's pulling a lot of cold air, because it's like a dryer vent in reverse. It's a 4-inch pipe pulling air in. It's like, man, why have it for the water heater? He hooked it up for the boiler. So you knock this off, watch. So all I got left is this, 60. I got 178, even with a few things closed. That water heater will never be a problem. So he said he'd have to get some kind of kit. There was some production he'd have to go through to get this to hook in with this. And we left it like that for a while. And a month or two later, they came back, did something else. And I said, you know what, forget it. All I'm going to be doing is dumping more cold air in the basement that I don't need in the wintertime, because I've got this, and all I need is that for the water heater. The boiler is covered, because when the boiler comes on, fan in the can comes on. So anyway, that's the story of the fan in the can. That's something like when I was an apprentice many, many years ago, I never heard of such a thing. What we used to do back then would be to cut louvers. There'd be like openings straight to the outside, maybe with a screen and some louvers, like shutters, so the rain wouldn't come in, and it would let air in. But it was always, and it's very cold. Now you can do that legally, and there's a formula in the book. 1 square inch is good for 1,000 BTUs if it's going into another room like a garage. If it's going right to the outside, they give you more credit. But that's another class in itself. The problem with venting to a garage, or mainly to the outside, which is the best, is that it makes the room cold, usually, unless you got a house like my daughter's. But in most boiler rooms that are like borderline like this, if you have an opening that big to the outside, that room's going to get cold. Not ice cold, but much colder than what it was. And what some owners do, you can probably guess this, is that they'll say, oh, forget this. It's like a window being open. So what they do is they'll just get like a piece of plywood and cover up the opening, right? I've seen that. Not often. Well, I don't get involved with cutting openings for the outside. So if it's your job, my advice is go with the fan in the can. It's maybe in a bucket, on top of a bucket about that big around. And it's got like a 4-inch piece of smoke pipe right out the top. Okay? That's the way to go. A little expensive, but get a good electrician, wire it up properly, and you don't want a situation where if the boiler ends up, if you get a close call. This happened in my cousin's house. Um, it looked like this, just like this. In fact, my father did the work back in the 70s. I had already gone off on my own, so I wasn't with him. But many years later, I went back to put a new bathroom in. And after my father left, they put a wall in right in front of the boiler like this. So from here to here was 7 feet. That's it. So the boiler went from almost 35, 38 feet this way to 7. This is a wall. No fan in the can. Now, my father put it in. I guess it was big enough in those days. I don't remember now, but it would have been a close call. If it was something like this, I don't remember. I wasn't there, but just guessing from what I saw, it was probably adequate for the time. But this, no way. So I talked to the plumbing inspector. I told him I could put a fan in the can, I could do something like that. And at the time, fan in the cans were pretty new. This was back around mid-90s, I guess. And I did. I ended up putting a fan in the can in here to cover what now was a tiny boiler room. Okay? Somehow it worked all right before I got to it. But that's another thing you got to keep in mind. What's their plans for this basement? If they're going to finish it, even if this is big enough here, you definitely want to put a fan in the can so you don't have a situation like this. Okay, let's see how we're doing for time. All right, I'm going to have to wrap this up. Okay, now we are getting a bit into the gas code here, which I really officially haven't done yet, but this is kind of going in kind of the back door here. We're going to be doing gas pipe. The first thing we'll be doing, we'll be doing a little bit about rules about gas piping and also the gas pipe chart. The chart is, if nobody explains it to you, it sounds a little scary, but it looks a little, but it's nothing. It's something you can pick up in a matter of minutes, right? As long as you can read the chart, you just read over, no, down, and over. That's it. It's very, very simple, but I'm not set up to do it in this class. Okay, so if you have any questions on this, I'd like you to save them for class. All right, we're going to go live and we're going to go over the answers to the blueprint for that last video you saw. If you, the one you haven't seen yet, I don't know which one you're watching first. But if you got any questions, save them for when we go live tonight. And I just want to show you a couple things before I have to cut this off. This, by the way, is not quite to scale, but it's pretty accurate. Okay, it's pretty accurate. Now, one of the questions on tonight's lesson on the test at the end of the chapter 6, I think was some about crawl space. And while you have it there, I'll see it when we come across it tonight. And I actually used a magnifying glass. They have a blueprint, but they mentioned that it's not to scale because they had to shrink it down to fit on the page of the code book. I mean, not the code book, the textbook. And so it's very small. And I looked at it, I was like, yeah, right. I don't think I could have read that 30 years ago. So what I did is I got a big magnifying glass, and I saw that this crawl space under the house in that blueprint was 2 feet. All right, now that is a miserable crawl space. That is so small that when you roll over, you're going to be hitting your shoulder on the joist, right? Unless you're really skinny. That's not fun. And everything is almost in your face, kind of like being in a MRI tube. Now, what's the minimum size for a crawl space? Remember this one. Test question. Okay? Test question. 18 inches. How much is 18 inches? That's really small. You aren't turning over in 18 inches. I don't think you are. If you can't get somehow between the joists, you're probably going to have to stay face down, or you're probably going to be on your back. All right, or however you got in there. But that's legal in Massachusetts. Anything bigger than that, you probably should put clean outs, whatever, right? If it's less than 18, it doesn't exist. Legally, it's not even there. And if you want to get your tape measure out and tell your boss it's only 17 and a half, Let me know how you make out. That would be interesting. But this is what the legal minimum is in Massachusetts. This here, by the way, was in some places. I don't think it was. I know it wasn't 17. I actually got wedged a few times in here. It was a little scary, and I had to put insulation from here all the way over to here. That was a real treat. If you guys ever put up insulation, if you buy a house and put up insulation, you staple it, right? And then what I did, because sometimes they put those little metal, they're like thin coat hanger, they're tensioned, but the insulation, you've probably seen this, it falls out. I think it might get a little bit of dampness, gets heavy, falls out, you got nothing. All right, so I stapled it all, and then I went back with ferrule strips. So the joists all run this way, so the ferrule runs this way. So I screwed ferrule up every foot, so it gave the insulation a little bit of extra support. I don't ever want to go back in here. I'm all set with this. Also, and I told you guys, if you got to go into a crawl space and do something, like you're doing heat, save the boxes that the baseboard came in. Take those metal staples out because they'll just tear you apart if they rip into your skin. Get the staples out with your pliers and stack up the boxes flat. They're about that wide, about 20 inches wide, maybe 24 inches wide. Stack them up and slide them out like a deck of cards and push them out in front of you. And you can slide in on that and back out again. Yeah, it's not perfect, but it's not bad. If you've got to work under a whole area like this, what I had to do was put tarps in there, right? I got a whole bunch of tarps. And that was a real treat getting those in because I only had one entrance over here. Then I actually dug a tunnel to get in this side. I actually dug it down and kind of went in there like like some kind of mouse in here because from here to here was way too far. So right about here, just dug a tunnel in. All right, you're not going to be doing this out in the tree. You're not going to be digging tunnels and that. But if you ever have to do a considerable amount of work in a crawl space, the top works pretty good, right? Just get a big tarp. They're cheap. Throw it down, do your thing, take it out with you. All right, it works pretty well. Okay, that's it. Definitely running about the maximum length of time on these videos. So, if you have any questions on fan in the can, makeup air, save them, and when we go live, you can